want to do it quietly? Right.
The Western genre is something that's quite neglected in video games these days. Not to say that there weren't any over the years. I mean, I'd say around 90s, 2000s, there were a few studios that gave the genre a crack. And the game I'm talking about is one of them. But I feel like since Rockstar released their magnum opus in 2010, which is Red Dead Redemption, um, a lots of developers have been scared out of doing the genre. And that's not to say that Techland, who made Call of Juarez Bound in Blood, which is the game I'm talking about today, didn't take another stab at it a couple more times. We had 2011's Call of Juarez The Cartel, which the less we say about, the better. I mean, the concept of the game wasn't a bad idea. It was just that the whole thing of setting a Wild West franchise in modern era was a bit misguided, I'd say. I mean, it's not like that it couldn't have worked. They could have done like a Western set in modern times, which is done before in film, but I think the execution of that game was just not very well done at all. But in 2013, they gave us Call of Juarez Gunslinger, which was a superb arcade action shooter with minimal story. Not to say there wasn't any story at all to that game, but it was more of a gameplay focused experience. And it was fantastic. I mean, I replayed it on my Switch fairly recently, but after 2013's Call of Juarez Gunslinger, that's it. We haven't heard anything since because Techland, which yes, that Techland have been working on Dying Light ever since, and I feel that they could take a stab at Call of Juarez again because I believe in 2020 they did buy back the rights to the Call of Juarez franchise. That's why I got a re-release on Switch, Gunslinger, which I think this game should get a re-release as well, by the way. But I feel um, the second game, Bound in Blood, is easily their best in the series because it kind of overcame the growing pains of the franchise. Because 2006, the original came out, a great game by its own admission, but it was very rough around the edges, and this felt a bit rough to play in general. I liked it, I really liked it, but this one you can go in without any prior knowledge to the first one because this is a prequel. It's a prequel to the franchise, and overall, it's a fantastic game. It's came out in 2009 on Xbox 360 and PS3 when there was kind of like this sea or wash of shooters, mostly based on sort of modern military warfare. But a Wild West shooter in a pre-Red Dead Redemption world was interesting. It was good. Not open world. It's very linear. You can beat this game in about 7 hours or less if you know what you're doing. But considering how cheap the game is these days, that's not a problem. I mean, you can pick this up for like £1.50. But in this world of like just all sorts of futuristic shooters and stuff like that, zombie shooters, that sort of thing, I wish we could just go back to a Western themed FPS game. And with the re-release of was it Outlaws, which was another FPS game from LucasArts back in the 90s from Night Dive Studios, I feel Techland could kind of get in on it and just bring back an old dormant franchise of theirs. I'll be doing the usual sort of spiel on my YouTube videos. I'll go over the plot, go into gameplay, and just like visual sort of stuff. I played this on Xbox 360 via my Xbox One X through backwards compatibility. If you want to play it like the best possible way, it is through the Xbox One X or the Series X through backwards compatibility, because this game, which I'll get into more technical details later, runs at an uncapped frame rate back in there on the 360, but it's very unstable if you play it on native hardware like the 360, and especially on the PlayStation 3. So if you want to kind of just have like a smooth 60 frames per second experience, One X, Series X is the best way to go. But anyway, that's enough for rambling on with my intro of this game. So let's get into Call of Juarez Bound in Blood. Call of Juarez Bound in Blood is a prequel to the first game. So as I said, you don't need any prior knowledge. You don't need to play the first one because it sets up what happens in the first. Basically, you start off in the Civil War. You play as Thomas and Ray McCall, which the Civil War chapters are basically tutorials for each character because you can pick either one before each chapter starts. But in these two chapters, you are forced to play one or the other. The first chapter, you play as Ray, which I'll get into the gameplay segment later about their ins and outs of their attributes. But you play as Ray. Then in chapter 2, you play as Thomas. You're probably thinking which side of the Civil War in America you're playing on. Is it the Union side? No. You play in the Confederate side, which, all snarky head shakes aside, I thought was a bit different and a bit ballsy for them to do that, to put it profanely. But you play on the Confederate side, you defect from the attack because you find that your home and your farm is being attacked, where your younger brother and your mother is. Where you get to your homestead, your mother unfortunately passes, and your farm, your homestead is completely obliterated by the Union forces, and then you have to go on to, they become outlaws to go on to rebuild their home and farm. Although that is the initial goal of theirs, which unfortunately that kind of gets modelled the further into madness and bloodshed they get into, with their younger brother William being a priest. He doesn't agree with what they're doing with their actions, but he sees no other way of them to kind of get their wealth and to rebuild their home. I like it because there's a bit of moral complexity because William's a priest. These two don't really give a damn about what they're doing. Although Thomas, in terms of like characteristics, he's more level-headed and a bit more calm compared to Ray, who's more hot-headed, wants to get things done and just shoots anyone that gets in his way. Thomas is a bit more level-headed. He's like, hang on, should we really be doing this? But half the time, he ends up agreeing with Ray and joining in. But complexity of the narrative gets a bit muddled. Ray and Thomas stop seeing eye to eye with each other with their overall goals because of a love triangle that forms in the main narrative. I won't get any further into that than that, but they end up falling out. Let's just say that. But you kind of see that in the intro of the game anyway. Um, but what I like about this story, it starts like the end of the main cutscene, but near the end of the game. But then it goes back and kind of transpires how they got to that point, and I really like that. It's a trope that's been used as old as time with film and that sort of thing, but it works really well in this case. And you see the relationship between Thomas and Ray start off really well, but it starts to deteriorate as the further you get into the game. And I really like that. Voice acting in this game is quite good for a 2009 game and quite good for a very sort of small budget game. I mean, you have a few lines that are a bit off here and there, and considering Techland at this point, they were quite a small studio. Maybe it's because this game was also published by Ubisoft, by the way, so they probably had a bit of backing from them in terms of budget. But it was a very small budget title sort of game. But when you play it, you wouldn't know that because it's quite well produced. The cutscenes are well shot, sort of typical like Western sweeping shots of like the wilderness, that sort of thing. And the voice acting across the board has got emotion, it's got passion behind it, and it's just well done. That being said, when you're shooting at NPCs during gameplay, there's a bit of repetition from like the people who are after you, but that doesn't get in the way of my enjoyment of the main narrative, which is important. Like if you want to portray a good story in a game, you need to have like really good writing, good script, good performances, and this game has it across the board. There's a couple of like instances where you're like, hang on, do you need another take on that? But this was back during a period where like you could just get away with a bit of jank in your games, whereas now people will hold it under a microscope, like I am now, for instance. But the narrative is really good. It's well acted. It's just absolutely superb, and it's just brilliant. It's sort of typical Wild West Western tropes, but it's just gel. It's just so well put together. You can't help but keep playing it to see where the narrative goes. And overall, if you're looking for like a quick, I would say simple narrative, but a narrative with decent plot twists and turns, this game has got it. And if you're a massive fan of like old school like spaghetti westerns from Sergio Leone, the Clint Eastwood stuff, that sort of thing, then you'll love this game because it takes everything from Sergio Leone. Even the music is sort of something you'd hear from an Ennio Morricone score, that sort of thing. It just pays so much homage and respect to the source material from the 60s and the 70s of the Western genre. And it still blows my mind that this came out like Red Dead Redemption. Like everyone just goes, oh, all Western games kind of like took template from Red Dead Redemption. It's like, no, not necessarily. I mean, there was a Red Dead game before this, Red Dead Revolver, but Red Dead Redemption didn't like set the standard yet of what a Western story or game should be. But that's enough of the story. It's a great story. It's well put together. It ties off nicely, and it smoothly transitions into the first one quite well too. And I won't spoil the ending of why that is, and I'll let you play it and find out for yourself. But let's get into the gameplay section, shall we? Now, gameplay wise, nothing too sort of groundbreaking for its era, because I mean, if you were around in 2000s, early 2010s during the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, there was a wash of first-person shooters because of Call of Duty, basically. A lot of them trying to mimic Call of Duty with its setting with the modern warfare concept, but there were others with their own unique spin, and this was one of them. Um, First-person shooter with some differences from other FPS games. I mean, as I said at the start, you either play as Ray and or Thomas in each chapter, except for the first two chapters where they force you to play it to tutorialize how each character works, because they play differently. Let's start off with Ray because he's probably like the simplest character to play as. He is the tank character. He can take more damage. He can dual wield pistols, which Thomas cannot. Although when you're playing as Ray, you see Thomas dual wielding pistols, which is quite bizarre to see. Even though when you play as him, you can't dual wield pistols. But anyway, he can dual wield pistols. He's more efficient. He can use explosives, so he's more efficient with dynamite. So he can throw them like grenades into the distance. He uses shotguns, that sort of thing. Um, the only problem is he can't climb up ledges. Like in certain sections, you're waiting around for Thomas to get up on high ledges to hoist you up, which is it kind of kills the pace a little bit. But for some reason, Ray just can't hoist himself up. When you see in the game, Thomas and William can do it. I mean, he's not like lacking finesse in some circumstances, but he can't climb up ledges. He's more of a tanky character who can just take more damage. I play as him a lot because you can just kick doors in and just like blow everyone away, because it's a lot of fun too. Thomas, on the other hand, although I forgot to mention, they both have like a dead eye sort of mechanic. Whereas Ray, if you hit the B button, he will highlight enemies like with the reticle, and he'll just dual wield and gun them all down. Whereas Thomas, he has a more precise aiming, which will segue me into Thomas's character. He has more precise dead eye mechanic. Sorry, can't speak today. Where he will sort of fan the hammer on each target that's in range. That's more effective because you kill targets more quickly. But Thomas is more of a finesse character, more sort of like precise aiming. So he can use bow and arrows. He can use throwing knives. He's more proficient at using Winchester repeater rifles, that sort of thing. And he can climb up ledges, that sort of thing. The only downside is he can't dual wield weapons, which is fine. I mean, most of the time I do use single pistols anyway, because in this game they use, of course, weapons from the mid 19th century, so you have to reload each bullet anyway. And dual wielding revolvers, where you're having to reload each bullet with two revolvers, is a pain in the ass. But until you get the quick shooter revolvers, which have speed loaders anyway, which isn't the problem. But there's that sort of ruggedness with this game that I've talked about before in like games set in different time periods, where the sort of ruggedness gives more impact with the gameplay, the gunplay. And I think what helps sell the impact with the gunplay in this game is the sound design. The sound design is incredible in this game. It has the sort of stereotypical noises you would hear in like old 60s westerns, but I think that's done on purpose, where you hear the sort of pew noises when it ricochets off walls, that sort of thing. No Wilhelm screams, unfortunately, but the gun noises in general feel good. They kick well, like the Winchester rifle repeater. It really kicks, and the double-barreled shotgun is incredible. The revolvers all have like different distinct sounds, from the Colt Action Army, Single Action Army, from the Colt Navy to the Quick Shooter. They all have varying different sounds. They all have different impacts on enemies, because, of course, like the Colt Action Single Army and the Navy do more damage, because it's that sort of weird sort of video game logic. If you have to pull back the bolt every time you use it, it does more damage. Whereas the quick shooters, you can put more bullets down range, but they do less damage in the long run. But gunplay is really good. It's really satisfying. There are bits where you breach a door, not too dissimilar to like modern military shooters at the time, where goes in slow motion and targets go across the screen, and you have to line up your shots and gun them down each time. It's cinematic. It's fun. It's not particularly difficult, but it's fun. And it being a Western game, of course, there are one-on-one duels, of course. And these can be quite cool and cinematic to very irritating, especially if you're playing it on higher difficulties. To start with, they're quite easy, they're quite simple. You have to basically make sure your hand is near your gun as you walk, but you have to keep in line of sight of your enemy. So you have to walk around in the circle that you're doing the standoff in. But if you do this on higher difficulties, they become insanely quick in the later levels. I mean, I did this game on hard back in the day, and they get very quick. You have to be like on point with your drawing and your shooting. It's ridiculous, but it's fun. It adds a bit more variety to the gameplay instead of you just plinking behind cover, shooting at people, that sort of thing. Um, they do add like a sort of pseudo sort of cover mechanic to it, where if you crouch behind a wall, you can kind of lean over it, or if you're by a corner, you can lean side to side, that sort of thing. It works here and there, but sometimes it can be a bit cumbersome. It can be a bit of a pain to get to work in some areas, but it's just nice to have it. And sometimes I would find that I'd get shot in cover anyway, so I just play it traditionally, like just crouch behind a wall and don't use the leaning mechanic too much because I just find it's a bit too cumbersome to get working, and it just doesn't work sometimes in terms of like cover. But gameplay, gunplay, superb, absolutely superb, just brilliant. Something I would expect from like a Western game you need to get right is the shooting, because that's the majority of what you're going to be doing in this sort of game is shooting, and it's great. It works. It's brilliant, and one of the best game shooters from this era in 2009. I mean, 2009, what an era of gaming! But yeah, gameplay is good. If you're worried in that department, it serves its purpose, and it will add plenty of variety for the 7 hours for this to be beaten in. So let's get into the sort of presentation, that sort of thing, shall we? So in terms of presentation for a 2009 game, it looks pretty good. Granted, I'm playing this on the One X, so it's cleared like the resolution up a fair bit. But in terms of textures and this, like in terms of overall visuals for character models, for landscapes, and just in general sort of lighting, it looks good. It runs on their, is it Chrome Engine 4? I believe it runs on, which they would later on use in Dead Island, and I believe they used it in the first Dying Light as well. The lighting looks great. You've got these sweeping landscapes, you've got these deserts, you've got these saloons which are accurately detailed for the period. The guns look great for the period too. They're accurately detailed as well. Character models look surprisingly good. I mean, you can tell it's definitely a seventh generation game, but in general, the character models look superb. The environments and the lighting just look great. You see the sunsets over the canyons, as I said, the distant trees, the forests, the foliage in general, and just the overall ambience and atmosphere in this game is just great. Playing this on the One X, pointing down because my One X is by my feet. um, it runs at 60 FPS most of the time, but it does drop here and there when you start blowing things up because, as I said before, this runs at an uncapped frame rate. Quite a common trope during this period where lots of games ran at uncapped frame rates. But this game runs it. This console runs it better. I think it would probably run better on the Series X, but it runs really well. It runs superbly well, and it's just great to play through. The only sort of weird thing with the presentation is that there's a weird aspect ratio in gameplay where it's not letterbox, but it's got like small black bars at the top and bottom of the screen. I guess just to sort of compensate for the resolution, that they could bump up the resolution a bit more. I don't know, not confirmed by the way, but presentation in general is good. The audio design is really good. The music in this game is very, very, very good. As I said before, it evokes sort of Ennio Morricone's atmospheric soundtracks from the old spaghetti westerns, that sort of thing. And Techland do a superb job of emulating that atmosphere from those old school westerns. Just in general across the board, for a game that's nearly 20 years old, this game looks superbly good, and you should have no problem playing it if you're like a younger gamer and you're worried about the game might not looking as good, but it does look superbly good. It runs well, and just I can't get over how good it looks still. I mean, I remember playing this in 2009 on my standard def TV, which I still had in my bedroom on my Xbox 360, because this is one of the first games I got that year when I got a 360, and being blown away by the visuals. It looked great. I was like, wow, this is where games are at. This can't possibly get any better than this. How naive I was as a 16-year-old when I first got my 360. But yeah, it still holds up today, I would argue, alongside most modern shooters. I'd say AA shooters, it'd probably hold up against some of the Unreal Engine 5 ones. But overall, great looking game, and a great game in general. Something I just wish Techland would come back and revisit is Call of Juarez, because what they've done at this point, 3 Dying Light games in the space of 11 years, 10, 11 years. I just wish they would come back and just do a Western shooter like this, because Call of Juarez was great. They made 4 of them in the space from 2005 to 2013, nearly 10 years. That's kind of nuts. But I think now would be a good time to revive this franchise. I mean, the only Western series that's around now is Red Dead Redemption, and Red Dead Redemption 2 came out, what, 8 years ago now, which is a long time. I can't think of any other Western shooter that's tried to kind of replicate Call of Juarez, or any other sort of Western game that's tried to replicate Red Dead, because I think people just don't want to be immediately compared to Red Dead Redemption 2, and I think that'd be the problem if Techland revived Call of Juarez. They would be immediately compared to Red Dead Redemption 2, and that's the kind of headache-inducing discourse that I would dread to see, because you see it all over the internet now where things are being compared to Red Dead 2 all the time, saying like it's the last good game ever, which I'm taking that from a Eurogame video, by the way. The guy's name I can't remember, sorry. Um, but yeah, that's the kind of discourse we would have being compared to Red Dead 2, purely because it's a Western game. That's it, not because it's an open world game or anything like that. But yeah, tangent aside, Call of Juarez, it needs to come back. I want it to come back. It needs to come back. I want it. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed my sort of quick look back on this game. If you want to pick this game up, as I said, it's on PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and PC. 360 one's probably the most accessible because, as I said, it's backwards compatible on the Xbox One and the Series X and S. But PS3, if you want to play on that too, that's also a good thing. I did a video about the PS3 the other week, so go watch that. But the best version is probably the 360 version. The PC version is probably pretty good if you can get it going on modern systems these days. But yeah, it's cheap. I think you can buy it for like £1.50, £2 for like in CEX these days, second-hand copy. But yeah, Call of Juarez Bound in Blood, great FPS game. Highly recommend it. And yeah, just play it. And that's my little look back done. I'll see you all later. I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, see you later. Bye.